Michael Dykes, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Doing well.
God bless you.
Good to be in Idaho.
It's great to have you here. And by the way, your presentation yesterday was just jaw-dropping. The amount of information you went through, the relevance of it. Sometimes I make it a point to not sit through like boring presentations, but sometimes you get caught, right? Like, and you're just sitting there like, who's paying attention to this information? You look around and everybody else is looking around too. Cause everyone, I was so locked in, and every slide you put up, every piece of information you presented, I kept trying to take pictures of. I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to remember this. And then after a while, I'm like, I should just get his slide deck, because I'm taking a picture of every single piece of it. CEO and president of Dairy International. No, come on. International Dairy Food Association. There it is. IDFA. Listen, I don't even want to get in the way. Please just start with the state of dairy in America. Go from there.
One of the things that I often get is people think dairy consumption is down because they've been watching fluid milk, and they think of dairy as milk, which obviously it is. It's just much more than milk. So for the last several years, fluid milk consumption has been down 23% in the last 15 years or so, with every year. Last year, fluid milk consumption went up almost 1%, 0.9%. But I tell people, despite that decline year over year, other sectors of dairy, cheese, primarily yogurts, other aspects were increasing. So overall, dairy consumption has been increasing every year. Fluid's been going down, others have been going, overall has been going up every year. So dairy's been doing well year over year. Last year was a very good year because not only did cheese and other things go, fluid milk took an uptick. Where did it take an uptick? Took an uptick in whole milk, took an uptick in organic milk, and especially the value-added stuff of lactose-free, high-protein, ultra-filtered, extended shelf life, those kinds of products. And cheese has been driving the bus. We eat about 42 pounds of cheese per year per person.
That's a lot of cheese.
That's a lot of cheese.
My boys love. We make a lot of homemade pizza, and my boys love the cheese. It's
Stuffed crust pizza.
Yeah.
Double the amount of cheese on a pizza.
I remember those ads. They were cut up, and it's like, brrr. It looked like you took a bunch of
makes it even better.
Yeah, string cheese sticks, and just rolled it into the crust.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, double the amount on there. And then butter's been going up as well, because we moved from the point that fat is bad for you. Saturated fats especially bad for you. Saturated fats being in meat and in dairy, but the science is beginning to prevail that not all fats are created equally, and you got to look at fats within the matrix. And the science on dietary dairy fat, saturated fat in dairy, has even some positive beneficial health effects.
May I ask a question? Going back to the liquid milk, there was a large push a couple decades ago. I remember seeing pictures of like Michael Jordan with the milk mustache and things of that nature. Was the nature of that push to try to reverse the slipping trends of the liquid consumption?
Yes.
But those ads kind of fell off, and the milk does a body good. Got some flack because there were a large contingent of other people that were like, hey, no, that's not necessarily true. Whatever it might have been. So did the focus of the dairy industry essentially say like, okay, look, we're fighting the tide in this manner. We're decreasing the number of people that want to engage in liquid milk, but we have these other avenues and these other products, especially not things that you would commonly associate with dairy, like protein powders, where it's like, hey, look, protein powders are like wild. I mean, they go into so many things. My wife actually does a fruit smoothie for two of my boys every single day. And she dumps protein powder into it. Blueberries, strawberries, all these things. But then it's like, get a douse of protein. So dairy doesn't have to, it's not like a mono product, industry. It's like you can do all kinds of classic products like cheese or yogurt, but you also have these other very popular exploding trends like adding dairy protein to things that you would never anticipate, like pancakes or things.
Absolutely. Global demand for protein growing year by year, as 10,000 baby boomers per day are turning 65, and they will for the remainder of this decade. And number one health risk, falling. Why is falling such a problem? Loss of muscle mass. It just happens. We catabolize muscle as we age. So as you get 60, 70, 80 years old, having enough muscle to keep you upright and prevent you from falling is important. So Demand for protein is growing. The beauty of where we are with dairy in terms of protein. So you talked about cheese. What people know about cheese. Several years ago, when I was a kid, once you make the cheese, the liquid stuff, the whey, was a byproduct it was a cost to get rid of it. You had to find some farmer to feed it. Now, whey, we're extracting the protein out of the whey, so whey protein isolate, whey protein concentrate. We're getting a value stream from that byproduct of making cheese that was a cost to eliminate in years past as now value add. And I even have some members when they come to Washington to meet with policymakers, they'll say, I'm in the byproducts business. I make cheese, which is a byproduct of whey, instead of whey being a byproduct of cheese. So that's where a lot of your protein powders is coming from.
Yeah.
That's whey protein.
Got it. So the concept of having this like virgin kind of raw material, I went to Idaho Milk Products recently, and the old, I think, paradigm was essentially like, okay, let's get this liquid and find some buyer for a liquid.
Yes.
Right. Like we have this milk and okay, great. We'll just, in Idaho in particular, and especially with this collection of people, they just used to produce that one first step ingredient, but you leave so much value on the table when you do that, because ultimately, some people would take it for direct consumption, but other people are processing and making other products, and then they're bringing value through that process, and seeing the capacity of people being like, wait a minute, this is only the first, we could 5x the value of this gallon of milk, or we could 10x the value of this, or there's value in here that we haven't even figured out yet because we need to do more R&D, and we could find a new product stream out of this. Let's just start going down that path. And it seems like that's really the key for dairy's future, at least within certain sectors where it's like, some people might not want to make the investment of having a processing facility, right? Some people are just like, look, man, I just do cattle, right? Like I just handle the first product and go from there. But for other people that are looking for value add, I met with a local dairy guy recently, Joey Bingham. He's got about 500 head of cattle. He grew up in dairy, then went to respiratory therapy in Boise and realized, hey man, I don't really like this life, right? So he moved back
to dairy,
to dairy, and started his own herd. But he went from just producing the milk to building a USDA processing plant, and now he also has a point of sale. Dude, incredible milkshakes, by the way. Like I had this wild huckleberry one; it was fantastic. But for people that want to make that investment, you have the capacity to continue adding value. So you can go 10,000 head of cattle and really focus on that first ingredient, or you could have a smaller number, but because you can multiply the profit out of those, you have the capacity to have a more, mom and pop individualized product line.
Yeah. You talked about Idaho Milk Products. If you think about their business model, so it is a case of vertical integration.
Right.
Dairy farmers who had cows and were producing milk decided we should process our own milk and get the added value out of the entire stream.
Right.
And so that's what they do. And there again, that's another perfect example of, so if milk, going back to the one thing you said earlier, milk does a body good. Why does it do a body good? What all's in this milk? It's something beyond cheese. It's something beyond ice cream. It's something beyond butter. What are those individual fragments, ingredients that's in milk that does a body good? So for my very first speech at Dairy Farm, which is our large annual dairy industry meeting, I had a slide with a picture of a jug of milk. And I said, today we're selling the jug of milk. In the future, we will be selling the components that's in this jug of milk. And there are many components we know today that have valuable benefits. There's a whole bunch of other things in there we probably don't even know yet as to why they do a body good, that if we could separate them and identify them, they would be extra value in those. And that's what companies like Idaho Milk Products and others are doing, is fragmenting the milk.
And the one of the interesting things is, you always have dissenters saying like, hey, the industry in general is bad, or,
for a variety of reasons,
like cow farts and whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, which turns out is like, no, man, it's actually belching, right? All these things. But one of the interesting spinoffs that I'm trying to dig into more as time and cooperation allows is the methane digesters that exist if you have a large enough company like Shell, you have a large enough company that actually wants to invest in the machinery and the infrastructure around harvesting methane and gas for energy production. This is a whole new, Intermountain Gas is the company that controls the gas pipeline going through Idaho, and Idaho Power is the power company that pulls, obviously gas off that. 40% of the power generated in the state of Idaho comes from, or excuse me, in Idaho Power comes from gas generation. Okay, now look, because of that, Idaho Power very intelligently went out and bought the last remaining gas rights for the pipeline that Intermountain Gas could supply. So if you want gas rights now, if you want to do generation, you're going to have to buy them from somebody else. We don't have any more. But with industries in the Magic Valley like dairy, you actually are creating more gas supply lines. So the industry itself, outside of spinning off protein and cheese and yogurt, whatever it might be, the actual infrastructure around and the mechanisms of producing dairy have additional spin-off benefits that will actually create products and supply lines for things that have not existed, that we absolutely need. And it's like, this is all, again, a spin-off byproduct of the benefit of having dairy.
Totally agree. It's going to be access to the gas pipelines, and some people in the dairy industry have even said that's another revenue stream we've never ever had before, and maybe one of these days the value of the energy production from the methane may be more valuable than other pieces. And if we think about another phenomenon that's happening with value streams, when I was in veterinary practice, a 3-day-old bull calf, a lot of times you had to work to find someone that would take them because they were basically of no value or almost no value.
Sure.
I've even had clients that would take 3, 4, 5 calves to the sale barn and be sent an invoice because the calves didn't bring enough to pay for the commission. Today, and I asked yesterday, so I put a conservative number up of $1,300, $1,400 for a 3-day-old calf, and people in the room were going up. I'm hearing $1,600 plus. Think about that. So that's a whole nother revenue stream for a dairyman. And I said yesterday, conservative, about $3 per hundredweight in the milk check coming from just the calf production. People are now saying, and came up to me afterwards, and I know they would.
Yeah.
You underestimate that. That's probably more like $4.50, maybe even more. So it's just another case of how the market dynamics change, and you got a value stream coming out of having a herd of dairy cows now that you didn't have not very many years in the past.
Right. On this exact point, I was speaking with the president of Idaho Cattlemen, Spencer Black, recently about the beef markets, because he was just absolutely incensed when all the discussion of Argentina imports came out. And he said, "Look, and again, being new to this, I'm like, help me understand what's going on, because you guys, it appears that your herds have become far more valuable. You're making more money." He's like, "Yeah, but look, if you go out," he's like, "first off, the beef industry has always been very cyclical." He's like, the last time we had a boom, because that's when I purchased all my equipment. He's like, "So you go out on into my area." He's like, 2014, everything's 2014. He's like, "And I'm looking now over a decade later to start replacing some of that because of the actual value of the beef product," right?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's like, "But look, what you have to understand is we have a boom for a year or two. The herds increase in size, prices come down, we're able to replenish all of our supplies, redo our equipment, all of these things, and then stock away enough so that we can tolerate the coming decade of lower beef prices, get through that and hit the next boom." He was like, "But this has been the strategy and really the system that we have in place, the dynamic, for decades and decades and decades."
Absolutely.
If we start modifying that, we will see the dying off of the American beef industry, or at least the dying off of the lower production beef industry. Not lower production as in poor quality, but just like, okay, you got 1,000 head of cattle or 10,000. Like we'll essentially consolidate, because then only the largest suppliers and growers of beef will be able to weather the storms, and that will put America in a very, very poor position, because we won't have diversity within our consumer trends, and we will also be subject to manipulation from international markets.
Yeah. Now, everyone that's ever been in production agriculture, to the point you just made, realizes it's cyclical. Right. So you have good years, you have up years, down years, good years, bad years. Beef in the 70s, not so good prices for beef. We've got excellent prices for beef now, but that's because, to what you just said, when prices are down, it's not profitable. People exit the business, cow numbers decline, right. And then you got a short supply. Supply and demand always works. Short supply, high demand. prices go back up. So that's where we are. That's where we are today with the beef industry.
Talk to me about what you think would happen if we did start actually opening the floodgates to international markets. I mean, obviously we have a risk of diseases. We have, all kinds of things, not just from a market standpoint, but do you think there would be a larger risk to our herds in general if we just started importing kind of at breakneck speeds from other places?
Well, probably the first example that which would be real is, let's think about New World screwworm in Mexico. It was in southern Mexico. Then it was working its way north. It was 300 some miles. Today, New World screwworm is 70 miles south of the Texas border. So they closed the border, May of this year, I think, again. And the big debate now is, when do you reopen the border? And if you reopen the border, do you bring in cattle for the feedlots, but do you also bring in New World screwworm sooner than it would be? So that's one of the issues that's front and center for the Secretary of Agriculture, is how do you balance that? Because the Texas feedlots are saying we need cattle, and the cow herd in the U.S. is down, and we typically bring in feeder cattle from Mexico, but the border closed, we can't do that, so we further reduced the supply.
May I ask, and please excuse my ignorance, I understand screwworm is bad. What happens? Like, why is it?
It's a flesh-eating parasite, and especially if there's any kind of cuts, scrapes, open wounds, it sets up and eats the flesh.
That's bad.
It's a bad deal.
That's a really, and to essentially eradicate it. What will Mexico have to do to deal with it?
Sterile fly production. So once the flies mate, they die off. So
sure,
if you have sterile males, then you don't reproduce. They don't further reproduce. So you control the larvae producing flies.
Okay, so essentially you insert sterile flies into the population of these insects, and then the sterile flies compete for mates, which reduces down the viable larva, on and so forth.
Yeah. And we haven't had this problem since, I think, the 60s. So our production of sterile flies has gone down. So now USDA is looking at building sterile fly production. Mexico's looking, but again, that doesn't happen overnight. So we don't have that. But now we have other new technologies as well coming on board. So, but again, we had the disease under control. There's been a resurgence of the disease. So now we're going to have to get our new tools, our old tools in production and new tools, and be in a position where we can manage those kinds of things.
If I may go back to consumer trends, a lot of consumer trends follow governmental guidelines on nutrition, and we have obviously a much different sentiment now than before RFK Jr. got put into place. What is the articulation or emphasis coming out of the MAHA movement, and how do they view dairy as part of that?
They've got a positive view on dairy. Again, they have a positive view on dairy fat. We expect the new dietary guidelines to be out by the end of this year. So any time, we fully expect them to endorse whole milk. So that's on the dietary guideline side of that piece. The other piece of the RFK movement is on ultra processed foods and how much processing of food goes through. And the thought is, if it's ultra processed, it's bad for you.
Sure.
Our commentary has been, it isn't necessarily the number of steps that it's been processed. Yogurt, depending on whose definition you want to use, might go in as ultra-processed food. Well, when you talk to policymakers about that, yogurt's not yogurt's a healthy product, yes. But if you're going to focus on this processing, you're going to have unintended consequences of that. So our view is dairy is nutrient dense. So focus on the nutritional value of the product, not the number of processing steps it's gone through. So if you do that, clearly yogurt is seen as very nutritious and very healthy. So how you define the definition for ultra-processed foods is going to be one of the issues of the whole MAHA movement.
Sure, and a lot of the ultra-processed foods also fall into different problems, right? Like you have very carb-based ultra-processed foods, and not to say you don't have like some degree of like beef meat sticks, it's like Yeah, man. It's like that. Just because it's not carbohydrate based doesn't mean it's always good. But again, looking at the overall ingredient list, perhaps, if you're looking at a yogurt, it's like, listen, very few ingredients. It just takes a lot of steps to get here. Okay, so maybe take a combination of things.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's where we're coming from.
Gotcha.
The other piece is the petroleum-based colors. So one of the things,
yeah, that's a big one.
Are red number 3, yellow number whatever, green whatever number. One of the things our industry has done is we've made an industry commitments that we will. Well, we started with added sugar in school milk. 7% of the milk produced in this country goes to schools, and we made a commitment that we would be less than 10 grams or less added sugar per serving of flavored milk in schools. That was for the beginning of this school year. We made that a couple years ago. We are at 7.2 on average at every single school milk provider that was a part of our commitment, which is 95+% of the school milk. Everyone met the commitment of 10 grams. Then we followed with the colors just this past when this RFK administration, and we said we will have no petroleum-based colors and any of the food in the dairy foods, milk, cheese, and yogurt. In the schools, we'd eliminate those, and we further took that we'll eliminate the artificial colors in retail ice cream.
That's a bit. I did not know that mint chocolate chip ice cream could be white until I got Breyer's ice cream when I was like 12. And I remember opening, I was like, we got the wrong one. They're like, no, man, they just put green in it. I was like, I had no idea. Yeah. I still ate it. Like, I didn't care, but
well, and the other thing, if you do taste tests, if we're going to drink a strawberry drink, and our mind, the visual, is just going to be red.
Sure.
But if you blindfold folks, they will, and so they can really taste the taste and not have the visual impact. A clear strawberry drink is sometimes they prefer over the one that is they've actually colored.
Gotcha. Now, again, this is for what portion of dairy producers are, or product producers, for instance, ice cream, like what portion of the ice cream producers are agreeing to this? Because again, it's like you have some very large ones, some small ones. I was at a local dairy the other day. What is it?
Well, what we do in the dairy industry, International Dairy Foods Association, when we make a commitment, we do it a little different than others. We don't just make the commitment from International Dairy Foods that this is what the association is encouraging our members to commit to. No. We go out and we talk to the individual companies, and like on the school milk, do you provide school milk? Yes. Would you sign the commitment with us that you're going to be at 10 grams of added sugar or less? Ice cream maker, would you commit to us? You'll eliminate certified colors by end of 2027. Yes. So we go contact the companies that do that. I think in the case of artificial colors for ice cream, I think we have 54 companies, I think. We don't disclose the name of the companies. But if they want to go advertise that's what they're doing and promote that, they certainly can. We don't prohibit that, but we don't.
I can't imagine that would hurt anybody.
No.
That was, I mean, if you, for instance, I was a rower in college at Cal. T. Gary Rogers, former owner of Dreyer's Ice Cream, was one of our alumni. In fact, the boathouse is now the T. Gary Rogers Boathouse. He passed away a few years back, but if they started advertising, we've eliminated petroleum-based colors. Like, I can't imagine anybody.
No.
Like, that would only boost sales.
Yes.
And once that industry leader hits it, then everybody else follows suit, because it's like, well, wait a minute, do you have the no petroleum color label on here? Something like that.
Yeah. So that's how we do it. Is we go to them.
Gotcha.
Now, we don't do mom and pop scoop shops.
Sure,
and all that,
of course.
Then you're getting into hundreds of.
Yeah.
Basically, ice cream sold at retail, we've covered the folks who provide that. And so then the next step we did is, okay, some of you have already, so if you're a global company, chances are you've already made those changes because you got other countries you can't have artificial colors in them, Europe.
Sure.
The other step we've taken is to help members. We've brought in companies that have natural colors. And how can you incorporate a natural color in to replace the petroleum-based colors, maintain the taste, the flavor, those kinds of things.
Sure.
So we're trying to help them make that transition.
Are other countries already, like, it's my understanding that in Canada there are some consumer products, not necessarily dairy, but there are already some consumer products that are like Fruit Loops. Which is like, listen, Fruit Loops exists on the shelves in Canada. They just have different coloring systems. So Are you engaging in a burdensome process where you have to effectively reinvent the wheel, or are you just saying, hey, look, man, watch out. These 5 other countries, they already do this. These 5 other consumer markets, they're already engaging this. Why don't we just find out what they're doing and select whichever one of these we like the most?
Well, what we did on the colors, you can't have them in Europe. Haven't been able to have them the last several years.
Gotcha.
So for our members that are doing business globally, we go to them and they say, well, yeah, we eliminated them X years ago, because we had to for that marketplace. So we asked them, so what have you done instead? We just put them in a white background. So we use that to help our members who aren't global or who haven't made the transition, our members talking to each other around,
sure,
yeah, you can do this. We did it X years ago because we had to. So yeah, we have international members. So dairy producers in Europe are members. Dairy producers in Canada are members. New Zealand, Mexico. So we have international members. So that's one of the values of having that. They can talk to each other around, well, yeah, you can do that. We did it, like I said, we did it X years ago, and it's worked fine.
Oh, that's fantastic. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Don't have to reinvent the wheel.
I spoke with Dr. Phil Bass from University of Idaho, who's an animal scientist, about a year or so ago, and he was articulating that the United States has gone a long way in getting cattle raised for beef production. They gone a long way to increase the size of the animals through effective husbandry, planning, not pharmaceuticals, but really just figuring out herd management. When you're looking at the international market for dairy, how do the United States producers compare to, say, somebody in Europe? Are we producing more milk, better quality milk? Are we producing less milk? How does it pan out?
Well, we have the most efficient producers in the world, and so if you think about sustainability on units of input per unit of output, no one beats the U.S. dairy industry. We are the most sustainable because we have fewer inputs per units of output. We are efficient, as you think about them as measures of efficiency. Sure. The size and scale of our U.S. Others will have more cows, but in terms of our efficient production, no one beats the U.S.
How does this? So obviously there was the Dairy Quality Award yesterday at the presentation, which I, again, as a person coming into this, excuse me, from the outside, had my initial conversation with one of the dairymen over at Sunview and was blown away by the effort that goes into improving the quality of milk. Now, again, you say quality of milk to a layperson, and like, what do you? I mean, is it cold? Does it taste good? I don't understand.
Is it dirty? Is
yeah,
it dirty?
Right.
Is it
like,
clean?
what do you mean? But then you get into the nuances of, no somatic cell counts, white blood cells, like all of these different things. And you realize like, oh, snap, these people are like the whole happy cow makes, happy milk adage. It's like, yeah, that's fun, but you don't actually recognize the science behind it. So, obviously there are very, very clear checks and balances to understand the quality of life, right? Like the engagement that these animals have with their surroundings, if they're being cared for or not, if they're diseased or stressed out, things of that nature. How do our qualities in that regard compare to the international market? So we're hyper efficient. That's great. Is anybody else beating us with like, hey man, they're happier animals?
No. Our quality of milk, our somatic cell counts, we're leaders in that area, and that's a perfect example of cow comfort and cow management and the conditions in which the cow exists in. So those strides in somatic cells and improving lowering somatic cells, improving the quality of milk, primarily through cow management on the dairy farm. And hats off to dairymen. I mean, we have there's standards you got to have to be on the market, 500,000 or something.
Sure.
But I mean, those guys that were up there getting the awards were probably in the 60s and 70,000. One of those nominees, I know somebody told me they nominated them. They were 73,000. They were a winner of that state, but the other winners were actually lower. So probably some of those are in 65, 68,000 max cell counts. Phenomenal.
And what do, like, if you say I got a cow, right? I actually had a plan to get a Highland cow. I was really excited, but then beef prices went through the sky, and now they're like $25,000. I'm like, Matt doesn't have $25,000, but I was.
You should have moved faster.
Oh
Matt.
my God, I should have moved faster. Or like I was living in an HOA, and then I finally got to like a little acre and a half. I'm like, yes, I'm getting. Man, I was so pumped about this. I was gonna do like different hair, like big hair rock band videos every week with the cow. Like I was really excited about it. Didn't happen. I'm gonna get a goat instead. It doesn't matter. But the point is, like, if I had my cow and I'm like, okay, well, being an amateur, if I had a cow that I was actually milking, I'm like, okay, great, like this will be great. What would my somatic, like, what would you anticipate being an amateur person that doesn't know all of the nuances of the cattle management? So I'm just getting a reference. It's like, if I tried it, my somatic count would be like 150,000 probably. It was like maybe 100,000.
Well, it's going to depend on, if you had one cow, she's probably going to be in a very clean environment, because
sure,
if you had 100 cows in a small barn with lots of manure and lots of waste, and a dirty environment, you probably be 400,000, maybe, I don't know, 300,000, I don't know. Depending on how you do when you milk and how hygienic you are when you're dealing with your cow.
Right. And how just not dumb I am handling the animal. Like when I went to the dairy, again, drove around with these dairymen for hours, just experiencing the animals, seeing the life they're living, and seeing how they just effectively and happily move through the different spaces when they're coming back from getting milk, when they're walking in to get milk. They're not fighting. Nobody's prodding them. They open the gates, the cows move, they go get some food, and then they lie down, and they have plenty of shade. It's like, man, this seems like a great day for these cows. They're like, yeah, man, that's the whole point, right?
If you think about it, Matt, and I tell people this, that who didn't grow up on a farm, to the dairyman, this cow is the lifeblood of the family. I mean, they want to take care of this cow. They adore this cow because this cow it provides for the family. So if you think about really and truly what you want to create, is you want to create the spa for the cows. Yeah. The most comfortable place there. You want to eat, it's right here for you. You don't have to walk 10 miles to get something to eat. You want to drink water, it's right here for you. Is it a little too warm in here? Let's hit the fans on. Let's make it comfortable. So the dairyman's whole focus is, I want to feed the best feed I can to meet her nutritional needs. I want clean water there for her. I want a very clean bed for her to lie in. I want the temperature to be controlled to be just right. I want the humidity to be just right for her. I want everything, all conditions I can control, I want to be perfect for her. And when I do that, she responds in a beautiful way with some of the most nutritious product, the highest quality product imaginable.
This is why my somatic cell count would not be low if I had a cow. I would not have like automated fans. Like I know I'd be screwing something up.
Yeah. Well, you think about that with one cow.
Yeah,
think about that with 1,000 cows.
Yeah, or 10,000.
Or 10,000.
Right.
And the more you get of cows in one place, the more you got to pay attention to those kind of things. So every morning as a dairyman, you get up, you're going to be thinking, is there something else I could do to make the conditions better for her? And most people don't think a dairyman as thinking like that. But if you think about the economic model, why would you behave any other way?
Well, I think from a layperson standpoint, you don't recognize that there are these very clear, quantifiable, like quantitative values of, hey, how happy is the cow? You don't think that. You're like, hey, look, man, throw in whatever you got, like get out whatever you can. Let's make it as cheap as possible. Blah, 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 blah. And like, yeah, you have economic considerations, but the economic considerations have to go hand in hand with quality, right? Like quantifiable, test the milk. What are the counts? What are the white blood cells? Is this animal stressed? Is it not? The average person doesn't know that. So they imagine it as like a rented mule. It's like, okay, let's just run this thing as hard as possible. Who cares what the output is? Let's just get the output. It's like, but you can see what the output is, and you get financially dinked, and it's like it's a feedback loop, right?
It's just going to go. It's a feedback loop. So you work every day to make this the best environment possible for this animal, and at the end of the year, you've been profitable. And so you're thinking, we went on a family vacation. Sure. I put my kids through college. We did right. Whatever. Why did we do that? Because of what these ladies did for us.
Right.
So you become attached to them because you are appreciative. The feedback loop is positive. You did good things for them. They did good things for you.
Right.
No dairyman wants to do anything other than that. Why would you behave any other way toward these people, these cows? These ladies have performed for you beautifully. So why would you do anything different than what you do? So I spend a lot of time explaining that to people. The mindset of a dairyman, you don't understand. Well, why would they want to mistreat them? Why would they want to do anything else? Because if we put fans in and they respond it, and we go someplace else, somebody says, well, if you control the humidity, they'll do, well, we're controlling the humidity if that matters. Right. And when you got, like say, you've got 1,000 cows, or you can see, hey, we did that, and look here, look what happened with the milk. Look what happened with the volume of milk. Look what happened to the quality of milk. The feedback loop is there when you make these kinds of changes.
I know you got a big day-to-day, again, going back to the conference. One more question that I really wanted to touch on. When we go back to our federal partners, obviously, well, not we, because I'm not a dairyman, but when we consider the federal government and, again, we could talk about nutrition, we can talk about emphasis of fat or decrease of villainization of certain products, fractioning out different, by the whole bit. The number one thing I've heard from the dairy industry consistently is that we do not have a path forward for authorized labor nationally. We do not, and this has been this horrendous stick in the eye of not just dairy, but I mean, you talk construction, you talk, all kinds of different industries where it's like, look, man, we are fundamentally reliant on I was talking to a home builder just a few weeks ago, and he said the astronomical amount of economic activity that comes out of building one home, the number of man hours that it takes to build that thing, and recognizing that this is a 365-day industry. And by the way, if you don't like high housing prices, if you're not considering the supply side of that equation, you're nuts, right? We need more of this. And he said, now look, we do not have enough labor to fill the I'm like, do you want longer times, higher prices, all these? Like, we don't have labor. And this is the grand failing for decades of the federal government to have some kind of meaningful reform that allows a path forward for people to get labor that we need. Yep. And to supply Americans with the products and services that we depend on and are fundamental to our continued lifestyle. Where do we go with this, and where are we?
Well, you make an excellent point. We haven't had a legal pathway for migrant labor in dairy since the 60s. H-2A for agriculture workers, it's only for seasonal crops.
Right. So sugar beets, carrots, corn,
fruit,
whatever
vegetables,
might be.
whatever. We harvest once a year. It's on a seasonal basis.
Right.
In dairy, we harvest every single day, 365 days out of the year. We aren't seasonal. So we've never had a legal pathway for dairy. Sometimes people say, well, what are we going to do for labor? Well, maybe pay them more. This isn't about paying them more. We need a legal pathway that they can work 365 days out of the year, and we need to modify the H-2A process so that we can take the seasonality out. We can make it applicable to dairy operations, both on the farm and in the processors, and that's been our position. Once milk gets to the processors, we got to have labor there as well. That's 365, seven days a week. Most of these places are going 24 hours a day. So we need labor in this country, and we got to work that out. I always think probably one of the first places to start is just simply modifying H-2A so that it's not limited to seasonal labor, and we've got an agricultural workforce. We got to get some way to improve the legal mechanisms to enter this country illegally.
Okay. Now hang with me. I know there's a difficult thought experiment. If we go ahead and write down, modify H-2A 365 for at least the dairy industry, that is pretty crazy. And I mean, the number of problems that could be involved in just adding two dumb lines to a regulation like that, I think everybody understands that is a viable, easy solution. Just give me one industry, give me two industries, give me like a checkbox, verify, whatever you want. I don't care. Why hasn't that happened though?
Because what happens to you in politics is And we're seeing it. We're seeing it today in the government shutdown. I'm not voting for this because I'm opposed to this thing. I'm withholding my vote on this because I want something else in addition to that. So part of our problem we get into with, like you said, let's just add these two simple lines. Well, I don't really have a problem with those two lines, but I'm going to vote no because I want to take care of this other issue of mine. And so that's where you run into problems with many people say, well, just do something simple. Well, you can't always just do something simple because you got to satisfy all these other interests. And then by the time you add all the other interests, then it becomes 25 lines, and now you can't get it across. You can't get it across the finish line.
Okay, but if I may, just ask here. We do things all the time. I'm not even saying we do good things all the time. I'm just saying we do things all the time. I mean, you're saying since the 60s. We've done a lot of things since the 60s.
Oh, God, yes.
Right? Some of them good, some of them bad.
Yes.
Like this is one that has never been addressed. And my concern is, quite frankly, that both parties are utilizing this gray area to further political aspirations. They understand there's a problem and they all run off of like, I'm going to do something about this. And they do it from whatever lens it is. Either I'm going to close the border, I'm going to do this, or we have to whatever it might be. It doesn't matter. But it's being utilized as a mechanism to create a problem that people can use as a platform. Because if we really just wanted to do something, you could just do it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's like, fine, man. What does Brian want? It's like, okay, Brian wants an Air Force base. Okay, give him this dumb air. Like, get him. I mean, we're dealing with the dairy industry, right? It's like, okay, get him his Air Force. What is he? Oh God, my God. Okay, change the law in Tennessee. Whatever he wants, it doesn't matter. Like, do all of these different things. Whatever Brian and dumb Steve and Susan, whatever they want, give them what they want, because we need revisions. Because it's been since the 60s, and this is the dairy industry in the United States. It seems that with that much horsepower behind it, you could be like, okay, yeah, satisfy whatever Brian, Susie, and whatever, just get this fixed. But it hasn't been. And it's not that we haven't signed a bill since the 60s. No. It's just that we haven't done this. And my concern is that we're holding the dairy industry as well as other large industries hostage to further political aspirations.
But because we can't take a small step, we can't get enough support for the small step, because to your analogy, Brian, no matter what we say, won't come along to support this because we haven't done enough to satisfy his interest. That's actually going to his interests are actually going to be covered. That's the problem we get in politics.
Do you think that part of that is that it is so important to come along with it? People want a lot in exchange. Like, I think you need to downplay. Like, if you're playing poker, don't show your hand. It's like, well, I don't really care. Like, I mean, add the dairy in or not, like, doesn't matter to me. And then people are like, well, he doesn't really seem to care. I can't ask for that much. But instead, it's like, this is fundamental, bro. It's like, well, then I'm going to need some fundamental incentive. I'm going to need like a new dam or something in my state.
Yeah. or I don't necessarily have a lot of, let's say I'm from an urban district. I don't have any dairy farmers in my district. So you need all this stuff for dairy workers. Okay, I hear you, I guess. That doesn't matter to me because I want this. This is what matters to me. So if that matters so much to you, this matters a lot to me. You willing to do this? And then then you multiply that times different people. So you got all these different conflicting interests you gotta try to satisfy. Everyone that I've talked to about immigration, you talk to policymakers from rural America, heavy dairy districts, they will say, listen, this is an issue. We've got to fix it. And we've not had a legal mechanism since the 60s when we created H2A because of the seasonality for dairy. Michael, we got to fix it. Totally agree. Well, what are you going to do? What are we going to do about it? Nothing's going to happen on this until President Trump comes and says, this is what I want to be done. The other side of that coin is so many of them are afraid of this issue because they don't want to be anywhere near anything called amnesty.
Explain that to me. Why and what specifically are they afraid of? And I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just like, help me understand this.
That their constituents are going to think that they're going to have amnesty to become legal citizens right away. And that is, for some of their constituents, that is a real concern. And they're afraid they're going to be accused of supporting that when really and truly that's not what they support. So they want to be very careful of how they position themselves on immigration reform. because they don't want to be accused of that. So most all of them will say, President Trump comes out and says, this is what we want to be done, then people will get behind that and something may happen. He's made, in my view, some very positive comments off the cuff about we want to take care of our dairy farmers. We want to make sure that they've got labor, but nothing's actually come forward. So if you talk to the policymakers, some will say it's Secretary Rollins. Others will say it's not agriculture, it's Secretary of Labor, it's DeReamer. Others will say it's Stephen Miller in the White House. So finding who's going to actually, and this is a conversation I get in all the time, who can actually go talk to President Trump and say, we need something done about this, and here would be a path forward to deal with this. And there have been all kinds of suggestions come forward from the dairy industry over the years, all kinds of unimaginable pathways. But at some point in time, President Trump's going to have to decide and announce, here would be a path. We need to do this. Here would be a path forward to do it. And then I think you'll see politicians get behind that.
I know this appears unrelated. I had a long conversation with a gentleman about the liquor licenses in Idaho recently, and this is a very, very complex thing because essentially the path to get a liquor license is like a 50-year thing. So there are a lot of people when they have kids, they actually sign their kids up on a wait list for a liquor license, and once you own the liquor license, there was this point in time where they developed a quota system, and then sometime in the 60s and 70s, people can't pinpoint it accurately, people started leasing or trading, selling, all these types of things. Now, mind you, the law around liquor licenses expressly prohibited this. But what also happened is, although it was expressly prohibited, Idaho started taking a piece of it. So then another law came in where like they got 10% of the sale price, or they got a portion of the lease value. So although there's a law saying this is illegal, they started engaging and benefiting from it. So it's this whole big, insane kind of collection. Now, look, that didn't really, it wasn't a great system, but it also didn't prohibit economic growth or any problems because Idaho, the state, was essentially participating in this like goofy kind of system that was expressly illegal, but then they were also benefiting from. So you see the point. It didn't really become a problem until they cracked down on the leasing and the sale of it. But now there's no legal path forward for people that want to start businesses or advance to actually get ahead and make something happen. So it would appear that this issue of labor has, at the very least in Idaho, from the people I've spoken with, really hit kind of a fever pitch because for a long period of time, maybe we didn't have a path forward, but like nobody was messing around with the liquor licenses. It was like, whatever, like just, we're not happy about it, but like, we're not coming. Now we have this pressure being put on the labor, employers and whatnot, and labor sectors where it's like, okay, we're going to crack down really, really hard on this thing. It's like, well, wait, then you got to revise this other thing. We were only able to exist because you guys were like effectively leaving us alone, right? In across industry.
Amen.
Man, there's got to be somebody who says something.
It's a good. I keep thinking they will be something move on this. I hope soon. The other thing is, if we don't have the labor for the production, at some point in time, we're going to interfere with the supply of food.
Oh yeah.
And so for us as dairy processors, I always explain we care about farm labor. Because if we don't have labor on the farm to produce the milk, we won't have anything to put through the $11 billion of new investment in dairy processing. They won't function if we don't have milk. So we have a mutual interest with the production side of the dairy industry that there's labor, and we need labor on the processing side as well. So we need an answer to this, but politically this thing has been stuck, and it's been stuck for quite some time. It's something we're going to have to deal with. But again, everyone I've talked to says until the administration, the president comes out and says, here is an answer to this that I would support and we should all get behind, it doesn't appear as though anything's going to happen on this.
Man, that's encouraging and discouraging.
Yeah. We have a beautiful product in dairy. I think now is an exciting time to be in dairy. We have continued growth of consumption. We have $11 billion of investment, 54 projects in 19 different states. And I'm sure we are missing some investments because every time I show that slide, somebody comes up to me afterwards and says, "Well, we're doing a small $200 million investment." I go,
just $200 million.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we missed that. Tell me a little bit about it, and we'll put it on the map. No, I don't want anybody to know that we got it out there. So it's an exciting time to be in dairy. We got a lot of investments. We've got a health halo over dairy. We've been working on incentivizing the consumption of more dairy. We had it in the 18 Farm Bill with incentives on milk. We want to put it in the next Farm Bill that's happening, that we've got incentives for SNAP to purchase more milk of all fat levels, cheese and yogurt. We want to have milk seen as following the federal guidelines. If the dietary guidelines say this is a preferred suggested dietary pattern, eating pattern for Americans, why don't we incentivize that? And dairy should be there. So that's what we're working on. I think it's a great time. We've got milk production. We've got innovation coming in dairy. We're finding beneficial fragments in dairy. We've got protein in dairy. Global demand for protein's there. Even with all this chaos over tariffs, our exports are up up as of July. I mean, we're doing well in dairy. It's a good time to be in dairy, and there's nothing as nutritionally dense as a serving of milk. And think about the eating occasions for dairy. You can have dairy in your coffee in the morning.
Oh yeah.
You can have dairy over your cereal. You can have eggs cheese in your eggs. You can have yogurt. You can repeat that at multiple eating occasions.
Man, I'm getting hungry right now. I had these epic enchiladas 2 days. My wife makes these enchiladas. Oh my God. And we got a beef guy, obviously, just like a whole freezer full of beef. So it's this high quality Idaho beef, the ground beef that she made. And then she's got the enchilada. Oh my God, the cheese was so off though. It was just like every scoop was heaven. Anyway, listen, Michael, I really appreciate you. Thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thanks,
morning.
Matt.
I know you got a lot going on. Again, I just so appreciate it. Every single sentence you utter, I'm like, wow, man, I'm so glad to hear that. It's fantastic. I'd love to have you on again if you'd like. I know you travel around the country and I'm sure internationally as well. But thank you for what you're doing in DC as well. I'm actually going in a couple weeks to advocate for water infrastructure and just talk to some national partners. So maybe I'll see you there in a couple weeks.
Yeah, you gonna be in DC?
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah. Give a holler.
God bless it.
Give a holler.
Thank you for coming on, and we'll do it again.
Thank you much. Thanks for having me.